Thank you EA for sponsoring this video. Hello everyone, welcome to Simproved, Fry speaking here, and welcome back to another Sims 4 speed build. Today we are going to build a cemetery, because the cemetery, since the Life and Death expansion pack came out, is now a new lot type that everyone has in their game now, even in base game. And I thought, wow, it's a new community lot. Finally we can have a cool cemetery, because I have been building some of them and they were never useful. Now they are, and I thought, okay, cool, let's do that. I really want to do a cemetery. And since I wanted this to be able to be placed down for everyone, we're gonna go with base game. Willow Creek is a world that everyone has, and Willow Creek is also inspired by New Orleans, right? So I looked at some New Orleans cemeteries as inspiration, and they have these, I will refer to them as little houses now, little crypt houses. And I thought these are really, really nice looking and could be interesting. However, since I saw the trailer, I started building this before the pack came out and before we had the update. I had to kind of speculate how the graves work in the game, or will be working. And I thought, okay, maybe we need also some other graves, and maybe we can do funerals. It was all a little bit not clear how this is going to work out and what kind of gameplay comes with it. So I made a list. I made a list of stuff that I wanted to put in this cemetery. So we needed something like a chapel or some sort of religious, spiritual place where you can do maybe the funeral. And since I'm German, and for those who don't know, the last year I've been on a long hiatus. I haven't been doing any videos. I haven't even been playing Sims 4. And that was because there were around 3 deaths from people that are close to me. And so I can kind of say that I'm a little bit experienced about how German funerals work. And I'm just gonna assume now this is somehow, like, the basics of it is how funerals work in other cultures, right? So this is also highly gonna be influenced by what I experienced. And if this is not how grieving and funerals and all that stuff works in your culture, I'm sorry. And I hope that you don't feel offended, but this was kind of the thing that I went by to make this as useful for everyone who owns a base game Sims game, and other packs of course, but to make this kind of work in relation to how Sims gameplay is going to be. So I thought, okay, chapel, definitely a chapel. Of course we need some grave sites, something where you will maybe plop down the tombstones or the urns. At this point I didn't know how it's going to work. And then we need, of course, these cool crypts, because, it's New Orleans and I really wanted to incorporate them. And they also give me a little bit more freedom how to decorate houses and stuff, with different columns. And I really wanted to experiment with them, because it's not something we have that much, or I have seen on the graveyards and cemeteries I've been to. But I kind of liked them, and I thought these are kind of like architecturally interesting, I would say, and I wanted to incorporate them. Also, they will fit into the Willow Creek world. And then I wanted to have something like a memorial thing, that we sometimes have memorials where maybe the fallen soldiers of a war, or people that died in the plague or something like this are remembered. And I also knew that maybe that way we could also maybe make it work to have some plaques for the cultures that uses plaques. For example, one of my grandmothers is in a plaque. There's like a plaque thing with other plaques of other people, because she didn't want to have a specific grave. That was what she wanted. It's different how, I will just call it how people will end up. Is there a grave? Is there just a stone? Is it a plaque? Is there, I don't know. It's very different, and I wanted to kind of cover it. Even though I did not know how this is going to work out in The Sims 4. because this was all pre-update, right? So yeah, it's Willow Creek, so it has to be very lush and lots of trees and kind of overgrown. I really wanted it to be an old cemetery. And I also wanted to make it really lush because then it works on the park lot in Willow Creek in the middle of the 50 by 50 lot. That was the planning. And also that way it's not that kind of comical horror, you know, with like gnarly trees without leaves on it and bats and stuff. I really wanted it to be like a romantic almost place, like a park, like a recreational area as well, to find peace and kind of make it like a nice but still old looking cemetery. That was my whole spiel around it. And then when I found out like I wanted to do the memorial, I also thought, what about just tombstones without like the grave plot around it, right? So really, really old tombstones that we already have seen in some of the other packs, just as merely decorations that didn't work. And I didn't also know if they're gonna work later to mourn and have some interactable gameplay. So I also wrote down like old cemetery tombstones kind of thing, which I thought would be nice to the chapel. And then I also thought, okay, we definitely need some sort of plaza in the middle of it. That was something I explicitly wanted. I wanted to have this big iron gate, and then when you go through it, you kind of steer right to this monument obelisk thing or something like that. And then from there, it forks out into the other areas of the cemetery. This is not like especially like New Orleans cemeteries look like that I've seen online, but these are like all these things that kind of combine how some German cemeteries and Spanish cemeteries I've been to, plus the New Orleans ones, right? So this is kind of like fitting a European world. It fits maybe in an American world. It definitely fits into this Willow Creek Park. So in my opinion, this is like the best of both worlds of stuff that I know and experienced myself. It's gonna be interesting. So I started with the chapel. It kind of turned out a little bit bigger than I anticipated, but I used the new Castle Estate kit. It's a kit pack. I haven't been trying that out yet, and I absolutely fell in love with this. So this will gonna be using lots of the Castle Estate wallpaper. The windows are amazing. The columns, I love them. The color swatches are amazing. And like I already said in some other videos, it will turn out that the life and death pack swatches, the colors of the objects, fit into the Castle Estate swatches, and also they fit to the Romantic Garden stuff pack swatches. So these stone swatches, these are like different stone textures. They go really, really well together, and I use them heavily because they are perfect for exactly these kinds of builds, like a cemetery. It doesn't really need to be a castle, right? Like sometimes like old-timey historic buildings. For this was absolutely perfect, and we will be using this throughout the whole cemetery. So the chapel, I didn't know how funerals will work while I was building this. I have, of course, play tested it with the Life and Death expansion pack. So I will tell you right now, before we come to that, the chapel doesn't work that well for the funeral activities. All of the funeral activities that you can set the event to, it's like an event that you plan, and then you can kind of choose what kind of stuff you want to do at the funeral. I personally didn't know how you will do your funerals with your Sims, and I didn't want to restrict your gameplay, so this is now possible to do all funeral interactions that are in this pack, basically, or in this event, which also include dancing, which was a little bit odd for me personally, and cooking and like serving meals, for example, which is not something that I have ever experienced at any funeral. But I guess in some other culture it's like a more happy kind of thing. And this is also possible now, but it is in front of the chapel, because inside I will just put a coffin there. Your Sim can sleep in the coffin, but the whole wake thing and the whole kind of mass or something is not playable, right? Like it is in The Sims 4. So they will gather at the front of the chapel. There are some of the objects that you can use, and you will have a really beautiful funeral. I've played through it several times, had to kill a lot of Sims for this, but it is possible. Definitely like how the chapel turned out. It was kind of inspired by the Gothic kind of chapels that I've seen here. It's a little bit big for the lot, but still it's very beautiful and playable. And you can also put like a wedding arch inside, if that is a thing for you, right? Like the wedding arch. You can do weddings there as well in the Sims 4 game. So once the chapel was done, I started to draw some of the outlines of the whole cemetery, like how I wanted it to be. And it kind of was clear to me at the end, okay, I have to put the memorial statue quite in the middle of it, because I wanted it to be like this long walk to the middle of it. So it kind of has this big impact when you walk to that monument. So there will be a plaza in the middle, and then by this way, we have 4 sections basically. The down sections on the bottom, on left and right, are the crypts that are kind of like these New Orleans crypts. On the upper left, you have the memorial. And on the upper right, you have the chapel area with the old graveyard. So that is the whole plan of it. So you have kind of like different sections that maybe fit your kind of style of how you bury your dead. And also for the Sims gameplay. Like I already said in the life and death review sort of thing that I did, is that I was kind of taken aback we don't have plaques. So there's still not a functional tombstone that you can snap on a wall or something. And the workaround that I've seen someone post is you put the urn next to that plaque, make it smaller or something, put like maybe some flowers on it. So actually the flowers in front of the plaque are, the tombstone, and then you can interact with the urn and kind of mourn there. I personally didn't have any functioning urns with like real dead Sims attached to it, and I also think they're gonna be deleted through the gallery upload download. So you have to do it yourself, but this is like a workaround for that. What I did here is, once I had the monument plaza, I'm gonna call it now, there is a little gargoyle in it, which is from the vampire spec that also, of course, gets used heavily here. Love the gargoyle. We don't have any angel sort of things. We have a little fairy child and stuff, a statue, but yeah, there's no angel statue. Usually here in Germany, for example, we have maybe angels. It's kind of more of an angel thing. Gargoyles, not so much, but this is like my Sims 4 version of it. And I kind of thought, hey, they can look quite nice, right? Like they have this kind of grumpy but funny looking vibe, that gargoyle statue. So we're gonna see that heavily around this whole build. So once I had the whole plaza done with some benches, and of course there are going to be some trees that are going to block the view from that plaza to the different sections, I'd say, I started doing some of the crypts. The crypts are actually halfway usable. Like there will be one that I will just reference as a vampire hideout now. There will be 3 coffins, and basically your Sims can sleep there. I also thought it's gonna be fun, if you want to have a nap, so your Sims don't have to nap on the stone benches I'm gonna place. So that one is accessible. You can easily make crypts accessible. I will show you later, but basically you could also use fancy doors, or so they can get inside, and then you do the plaque trick, or just put the tombstone there so they can, mourn the tombstone. The big grave plots don't really fit in there, but also the interactions of the grave plots is they sit down in front of it, really like in front of it at the feet of the grave, and then they basically look at the plaque on the bottom. They are a little bit too small for that. I guess I would go for 4x3, 3 wide, 4 low, to make that possible. But this is also not how I personally thought people would mourn, right? Like, so the interaction is a little bit weird, but you can make it work. But I personally didn't like that, so I went either there's a plaque on the front or the tombstone pushed inside of the front of the crypt or something like this. You could also put in a little door and then put it inside. So we will see different sizes of these crypts. We will see different yeah, like I said, columns and stone patterns and stuff like that. So I definitely wanted to experiment here a lot with that, also with the statues and so on. There's a lot of things you can do to change it. But I personally was like, okay, how different can we make them look? And maybe we can even tell a little story about how, if this is like a rich family, you can kind of decide and decorate it fitting to their jobs or their legacy, something like that. And that was actually very interesting to make it work for The Sims 4. But I would highly recommend you to, if you choose one of the crypts, to decorate it yourself as well, because it's actually lots of fun. Throughout the whole cemetery, we're gonna use a lot of debug trees. These are the base game debug trees with the vines on it. There's like these jungle vines on it almost. I guess this is like a New Orleans thing. And I really like them because they make this natural roof. So it kind of all feels like you're a little bit more secure while walking under that tree. And also it's giving you this nice shadow. The only downside to these trees that I will use heavily is that the stump, or like, what is it called? The down part, the wooden part of the tree, is a little bit low res. But so for screenshots, keep that in mind. It looks maybe a little bit odd, but yeah, I personally thought I really, really need that trees because they look so beautiful. I really would love to have a high-res one in-game that they give us. And it's all about these vines that are coming down from these trees. And I just thought it kind of looks like a curtain. When you go into a new section of the cemetery, you have this sort of curtain where you go through, and it kind of starts as like an entrance curtain door sort of thing, but make it nature, something like that. The crypts all range from Gothic to Roman and like super weird, funky, all the nice classical stuff, I'd say. But this is also something I've seen on the New Orleans documentaries, cemetery documentaries, I'm just gonna call them now, that people basically rebuild some old churches from their hometown and stuff like that. It was really, really interesting how different all of these actually look like. And we have the same here in The Sims 4. Everything is like super weird, and like you have Romanesque windows, and then you have like a Gothic arch and something like that. Like it's super cluttered architectural style wise. But that's what I like about The Sims. So it's a little bit more fantasy, but also it fits the whole diversity that The Sims has and like the families you might play. And yeah, I really, really like that. So the memorial basically is inspired by a couple of memorials I've looked up. I really like the idea to have this as kind of like a rounder shape. Keep in mind, round walls are still a feature that is a little bit, well, if I say a little bit bugged in the game is maybe an understatement. I still have lots and lots of issues with Sims and their round walls. I only use them sparingly, and I really wanted to make this as playable as possible because I know that for some players this is gonna be, you know, having a funeral and kind of saying bye to your sim is also like a heavy experience sometimes. I know it's a game, but if you have like a little sim that you have been playing so long with, and you have to say goodbye to that sim, it gets emotional sometimes. So I get it, and I didn't want you to have some typically playtesting issues where Sims are not able to walk somewhere. I really wanted you to have like nicest goodbye to your Sim as possible. So yeah, basically there are lots of these plaques on the memorial wall. And we have that here in Germany like a lot, be it for something war related or, I don't know, some sort of epidemic, or just, you know, normal people that didn't want to have like a fancy big grave or something like that. I really, really like the idea because there's like multiple sort of interpretations of that sort of memorial. And I really, really like the whole idea of it. Then around the memorial, I started to put down I would call them grave plots. Since this was still pre-Life and Death and the update, I just used platforms, raised them up, or it is foundations and then a platform on top, and then I put like some of the debug gravestones on it. That was basically me simulating that and also experimenting how these could look like. basically sometimes we have like these big family graves, and this is also how I will refer to them. For me, these are quite big because in Germany it's kind of, we have like smaller grave plots. And if they are that big, then usually it's a family thing. There are like multiple people buried there. So sometimes I will put multiple tombstones on there. And also later, once the update was out and I had access to the pack, I will change it to the actual object that you get with that pack, the little graves and so on. So your Sims can interact with that. And they definitely will. They will like flock to there. They don't even know these people, but they will definitely tend the graves and stuff like that. And it's cute to see. So yeah, basically me experimenting with how to decorate these things, and hopefully you can see some things here in this video, you know, for inspiration. Basically that's all what it's about. And then of course I needed an open grave. So I put the skeleton from Get to Work in there. Later on I will use tool to lie it into the ground. And my whole idea was about this. Yeah, of course we need like a gimmicky little open grave because they had to do something. Maybe they're gonna report him or something. It's I don't know. Yeah, that was the whole idea. But yeah, maybe you use that as your grave spot and something and kind of like fill it up with all the Sims you killed in the pool and stuff. Once I've done that, the whole memorial upper left part, I'd say, I went back to the chapel and put in all of the old-timey looking tombstones that we have from the cottage living pack, I think. Because there is like a world cemetery there, right? I don't know if that is playable now if you have the pack or something, the life and death pack, I don't know. But these looked really, really like run down and kind of like forgotten grave sort of thing. And I personally like that. I was like, yeah, why not? We need that section because that's a section that here in Germany we have quite a lot, like where you can almost barely read the graves and stuff. And I thought that the chapel is gonna be like the oldest part of the cemetery, hence why it's like so in the back. It also has its own fencing and so on. And then later on they added the whole monument and the crypts and so on. These came later. That was like the whole idea of it. And yeah, I think it looks cool. Later in playtesting, this is also where I had to put, for example, the stereo for the Sims who want to dance at the funeral. And it will be pushed inside of like a sundial sort of thing. You will recognize it. You know, just search that area. And there's basically everything there. There's also a small little house on the side that looks like a crypt, but that's actually the entrance to the catacombs where I will put in, well, much to my dismay, had to put in a little serving table, like a banquet table and a kitchen. There's also a toilet there, like a bathroom sort of situation, if you want to play there multiple days in a row or something. And maybe later at some other point we will do like fancy catacombs and stuff like that, which could be interesting. Okay, then we moved to the lower right, and like I said, I wanted to have more New Orleans kind of crypts. Also, I needed one crypt for the garbage can, so the garbage can is gonna be on one little side of that. It's like a small, really, really small crypt. And then on the other end, on the really lower right corner, I had this cool idea to maybe do something like a temple, because I thought that the Grim Reaper career, or for the Order of Lenore, or the Grimborn thing, there is like all of these secret kind of cults or organizations gameplay wise. I thought maybe they go there and it's kind of like a hidden meeting room. And we have a female statue from the Vampire Pack. And I thought, well, if you lock them in together, like with move objects, something like that, kind of looks like they hold hands, sort of. And these are the three fates. So the whole thing about the three fates is a thing that I know from Germanic, older Nordic gods, like they're called the Norns, I think. Then there are the Fates and the Moors or something. I don't know. Like there are references of like these three in different, I would say, cultures, right? Like the whole idea of like the, you know, spinning the life thread and then measuring it and cutting it, something like that. And I thought this is kind of fitting for a whole cemetery, so we're gonna do like a temple sort of thing. And then what I had left on the other side of the temple is the wishing well. So there is a wishing well in the romantic garden stuff pack. You can go there and like wish for health and money or a career or skills and stuff like that. And I've seen in the trailer of Life and Death there is something similar. And I was like, yeah, we're gonna put the Life and Death thing in there. But it looks really, not that nice. And I really wanted to have like a cool gothic kind of fountain sort of situation. Didn't turn out that gothic because I can't make the roofs that high in the game without a mod or a cheat. But yeah, it turned out really beautifully, and it is possible to play in it. Like my testing Bonehilda could wish there. And it's totally working. I was so stoked that I could place that object in later and that it worked. So you can wish for stuff there as well. So there is like more interactability than just, just funeral. I really wanted this to be something like a park and kind of be inspired by the graves and stuff like that. Kind of have it like a happy sort of place and not as comically horror. If you want to make this comically horror, I can already tell you, either you set it to winter if you have the seasons pack, so all of the leaves are gone, or just delete all of the trees. That already does a lot of, like, the trees make it way more friendlier. That's the life hack here. So here you can see me after the Life and Death expansion pack. So I will change some of the graves to the grave plots. Some people have asked for pet graves as well. So if you have cats and dogs, you know now that you can have ghosts of cats and dogs. The horses also are ghosts now, and I mean, they have to be buried somewhere. I totally get it. So I made some decorations with horses. There will be a raven grave as well, even though the raven you get with the Life and Death expansion pack doesn't die, I guess. I don't know if it can. Maybe it can. But like, you can gameplay now that the raven also has its own grave. Because, yeah, I know, pets has to be buried somewhere as well. Kind of like the whole idea of that. But they are intertwined. I didn't make a section by itself because I know that some people are like, ugh, pet graves don't, necessarily have to be at a cemetery for humans. They kind of want this strictly into different sort of lots. So I made this kind of very subtle. And you could also argue that maybe the horse graves, maybe it was someone who was a rancher or something, and it's not necessary for a horse. And yeah, I definitely experimented here with the different grave plot types. And I was kind of sad that the green ones aren't plantable, like they don't plant trees or little flowers on there themselves. This is something we do in Germany for sure. But if you go into build mode, you can easily plop some flowers in yourself and stuff. So these plots have 2 slots, I think. Well, 3. 1 is for the big tombstone and 2 for maybe a lantern and like 1 vase or something. But yeah, if you really want to have like a nice little hydrangea bush or something, then you have to put them in yourself in build mode. And then in front of the memorial, I realized the bushes were a little bit too much and I kind of wanted to make it a little bit more fancy. So I put in a fountain, and later on I will also put some ducks there, because that was something I've seen on cemetery I went to. I think the funeral was last year in, I think, summer or something. And it had a little pond, and there were like lots of ducks there. And we all thought that was so nice to look, like it was just nice to have ducks there. Like, wait, I don't know if that is like a thing, but ducks, like wild ducks, usually just, fly around and then like hop apparently from pond and lake to, to the next. And they chose that cemetery. And we were all like, oh, that's kind of cute. They're looking over the dead people here and stuff. And it was kind of nice to have some life there. And definitely that was like the whole point of where I was like, yeah, I need some more life here in that thing. So later on, I will also put in lots of glow bugs. So at night, it looks absolutely beautiful here. Really recommend you to stay over the night, so to speak. There will be some dragonflies, stuff like that. I really, really like that it's like really animated. It's very lush and it's kind of like a friendly cemetery, even though that it's also easily like spooky if you want to. Basically, at this point, I had crossed off all of the things on my list. It was play tested heavily. The funerals work there as well. If you want to hold your funeral there, there are plenty of crypts or grave plots that you can use for your own Sims if you want to. I really, really hope that you like this and that I kind of covered all of the different styles of cemetery you kind of maybe want to visit in your Sims world and where you want to bury your Sims, of course. I hope this inspired you for your own gameplay and for your own builds. Leave me your new build ideas in the comments or how you wanted your cemetery to look like maybe. Here's again a floor plan of it if you haven't seen it yet, to kind of like orient yourself where to go and what you want to explore. It's up on the gallery. I will put the download link in the video description down below. And yeah, this is basically it, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the extensive video tour now, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.